suspension. So I got a car, so it has suspension problems, so I'm going to kind of go through the front suspension, so it's not catered to just one, not catered to just one car or just one problem. So first thing I'm going to do is, when you do get a suspension problem, there's two tests you can run. So what I'm going to do is move this to the test path in my garage. And so I'll go through there. And so how you run this is you just go to this little box looking thing here, right click, and then we're just gonna, oh, let's see, I think I should just, yeah, there we go, I'm sorry, left click and just hit yes. So first thing you do is drive forward, and it's going to tell you when to stop, and then I'm going to hold the brake, so it's going to run its test. Seems pretty realistic to me. Alright, so now it gives me 80% condition for my brakes, which this isn't a brake job, so I'd expect that. So now I'm going to do the same thing for the back. So for the tester place, it does your brakes and your suspension, but not all of your suspension. So now let me go forward, and this tells me to place my front wheels on the suspension tester. So once I'm there, does all the up and down rattling, which is normal suspension testers would do. So I'm at 44% there, so that's pretty, that was expected considering this is a suspension job. They're complaining about they went over a bump faster than they should, so alright, so there we go. So it's telling me I need a front shock absorber. So there's two front shock absorbers that go on top of the springs on the front of your car, so that needs to be replaced. And then there's the two absorber caps that go on top of them, and then a suspension arm that goes, it's right behind the sway bar. Alright, so we're gonna close that, and I'm just gonna get out of the car, hitting escape, and then I'm actually gonna go move this. I'm gonna go test this car. So I'm gonna get out, and the next thing I do have to go for a road test on it, so that's what I'm gonna do. And go to the test track, and oh crap, I'll go make sure I got the right car. I'm still learning on what car is what, but I think this one, let me make sure. Yeah, that's my category. Alright, and then I'm going to go to the test track, and then I'm going to go to the Mayan 6. So this is just a little slalom course, and it's a good way to test, because this job here, it doesn't tell you everything that's wrong. It says parts to be discovered, so I kind of have to find what's wrong with the car. So as you know, when you go to a car mechanic, they say, well, let's see what's wrong with the car, so they can see if they can find something wrong with it and charge you for it. So this is no different. Taking my little test drive around the course. And the good thing with this scenario, this job, is anything that's wrong, they're gonna let you fix it. So here we're gonna go over the speed bumps. It's so weird I'm gonna go over the speed bumps again. That is the reason that the car's into the shop, but oh well. I'm just following the game, man. Alright, let's turn around here. And the last part of this test is the stopping. I wish I actually had my controller in this. I'm using the WASD keys to control this, which is quite weird. But I'm not racing, I'm just trying to see what's wrong with someone's car. Alright, so that completes the test. So now I should be able to see everything that's wrong with this car. Alright. And it's giving me more stuff. So let's see, I got tie rods, the inner tie rod. So I know where those are. I'll show where those are. Let's see, the front axle, the sway bar links, and the drive axles. 2 drive axles. Alright, cool. So we're going to go back and we're going to go ahead and get all this stuff fixed. So I now found a way that I can have more than one car and work on more than one job. Alright. So I'm going to kind of go over the suspension. I've done a good bit with the suspension, but this will help you in if you wanted to do even real life, because I've actually looked at these underneath these cars and suspension in real life, and it kind of follows it to a T except for some nuances here and there. So alright. But in this game too, there's some couple of suspensions, so I've been working on suspension because it seems like the more difficult one to do. There's a lot of parts going on there that I'm not familiar with. I'm familiar with the engine, familiar with the oil changing and the brakes, so this is good. So let me just go up under here and I'll kind of show everything. So I am going to take off the wheel, so let's go ahead and take off the wheel. That's easy enough. So I don't have to take these off yet. I can actually just take off the tie rod. Here's the outer tie rod right here. It's just a rod, it ties into it, so that's probably why they call it the tie rod. And here's the inner tie rod. So we're going to take this outer tie rod off, and we're going to go ahead and take the inner one off as well. Alright, so let's see. I know where the sway bar link. The sway bar link is right here, and this prevents any kind of extra movement, especially along the absorber. So we're going to go ahead and take the sway bar front end link off as well. You can actually see these parts in your car, like it's very accurate when it comes to that. And this is the front drive axle, so this one and the next one is this one on the right and this one on the left. So you have the front drive axle and it connects to your wheel, but it's so weird you can take this off before you actually take off the wheel in this game. So we're going to go ahead and take the front axle, and this is the suspension bar, or the suspension arm. So this actually goes from the chassis to your disc brake to your wheel, and that does a lot of stabilization, takes a lot of brunt force as well. So we're going to go ahead and take this off. Alright. So the next thing is, so this is actually another sway bar right here. It's the front sway bar, so it actually links the two sides together. And this is actually the rack, the steering rack. I know this one because going to the shop, they said my girlfriend's car, she has a noise that's in this area here, and they're saying it's this, and it was nowhere near what was coming from, because on this game it's $800 part, which is close to real life as well, so they just wanted some money. So this is not going to have any noise. As you can see, going over a bump or something, it's not going to be your steering rack, because it's more with steering, and this game does an accurate job of letting you know if there is a steering issue that it's probably going to be your steering rack. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and take off my absorber, and this one actually is a grouped. So once I take this off, it's basically 3 parts, and there's another tool that lets you combine the 3 parts, and that's your cap, your spring, and then your absorber. But I may not need to replace that. I didn't see if I needed to or not. Alright, so now let me go to the other side and do the exact same thing. So the back is similar, except the spring is not as big, and Yeah, the spring isn't as big, the absorber and the spring isn't big, but it's pretty much the same thing with the suspension in the back. Your sway bar that connects your absorber to your arm or your drive axle. But a good thing here, I don't need to take off my brakes, but I think maybe in real life you have to. I'm not sure. I'll have to look at my book for my car. So I'm gonna go ahead and let's go to the other side and take out the tie rod and take out the inner tie rod, and then you have the suspension. You can take this off, the arm suspension. And then we're going to go to the drive axle, which is here, and this is what turns the wheel. So when you go, this is what's spinning, the drive axle. Oh no, I think this is what's spinning. Yeah, no. This is actually connect. This doesn't, I think so. Quote me if I'm wrong or not. I don't think that spins, but that controls the spinning or the rotor. Because here's the front wheel hub, and then there's the bearing inside, and the bearing is what's spinning. So I think it's the drive, the axle that we just replaced doesn't spin, but it connects to the wheel hub. So a lot of suspension, a lot of force is going into that. So my apologies, it's not spinning. And now let's take off. Oh, I got to take off one more thing, and that's this sway bar. The sway bar link. So this links the sway bar to the front absorber. So there's your sway bar, but you got to link it to stabilize your absorber, and this is what link does it. The sway bar link. All right, we're gonna go ahead and take that off, and we're gonna go ahead and take that off. And I think that was everything. So I'm gonna exit out from under my car. I'm gonna right click, car status. Oh, there's still 2 parts undiscovered, but we're not gonna worry about that right now. I can actually probably look under here and see. I think maybe it's a bushing, but we'll find out. Let me order my parts in the main shop. Alright. I actually have some things in my inventory already, though, to tell you the truth. Let's see, I have this front spring. Let's see, I have the sway bar. Nope, that's not. I gotta get rid of all these junk. Let me sell my junk. Alright, there's my front drive axle. I'm gonna sell that. So here's the front spring, and that's all I have. All this is the rear. Oh, and I got a tie rod, and here's another one. So, oh, I got a case. I'll open that later. So let me go to my computer. I like this game because now I'm getting familiar with everything, so I don't need to remember as much. So I know that I have the front spring. And I think I need one more. Sweet. Alright, and now I need, let's see, the absorber cap. Alright, I need one of those. 2, should have just did the 2, but whatever. Alright, so I know I got the spring all done. There's a spring cap. Ah, I may need the spring cap. Let me go and check that actually. Nope, the caps are fine. Okay, so it's not the cap. Actually, let me go ahead and open up this box. Yes. And let's see what I got here. Push rod, engine head, and tank manifold. Sweet. Alright, so now let me get 2 drive axles. Alright. think they're A. Let me make sure it's A. Oh no, never mind. I'm glad I looked. It's C. So this game tries to do like real life where not all parts are universal, so it's trying to add new different variations with the A, B, C, D, and E. So it's doing a good job there. Why did I leave? So now I need my 2 sway bar links. Alright, let me just do... There we go. Oh, this is not a really good search. Sway bar front, link A. So let's get 2. I think they're A. I'm assuming they're A. Alright. And then we're going to go ahead and get 2 tie rods. Alright. 2 inner tie rods and 2 outer tie rods. Alright. And then the lower arm suspension bar. Alright, there we go. Lower suspension arm. There we go. 2 of those. Let's see. Alright, I think that's it. So we're going to go back to the left side. It says I have 2 parts I still haven't discovered, and it may not be suspension, but this is just going to go over the suspension a little bit. It could be a bearing. A lot of these bearings are within the suspension, so for all oh, hold up, it could be that suspension. Let me see. I'm gonna right click, examine. Nope, not the rubber bushings. Alright, I'll find that at a later time, but let me just go ahead and start fixing this. Alright, mount parts. So let me go ahead. Oh, I wonder if it's the hub or the bearing. Let's see. I'm just going to open this up to see, because it could be... No, it's not. So let's just go ahead and put in the front axle. Alright. And now let's do the lower suspension arm. Alright, and all that's good. And then let's go ahead and do the inner tie rod. Seems like here you don't need to take out the steering rack. Huh. Seems like you can just put in the tie rod instead of having to do a new steering rack, but obviously that place was out to get money. I mean, I don't know how accurate this is, but I'm fairly certain they probably went to some mechanics and say, hey, how does this go? Oh, and before I do this, I actually need to go over to the spring puller. So anytime we do suspension, you have to put together those the spring puller. So let me join some things. Yes, because I didn't actually buy. And I want to make sure that the absorber is actually on here. Yeah, the absorber and the cap. So that's what I forgot to order. And they were junk, so that's why I don't see them in there. So here's the absorber. Let's get 228 a piece. Let's get the cap. Did I get the cap already? I did get the cap. Alright, so now let's go back to the spring puller. Join parts. Yep. Yep. And yep. Yes. So now this is going to do its thing. Good. So now I'm going to pull it in, and then I'm going to go ahead and join the other parts. Splappa. I like the suspension. I don't know how long I'll say that before I get bored, but I like it now that it's not as overwhelming. When I first started, it's like, geez, there's a lot of things going on. But now I know. So now I can go ahead and click on suspension. Click on that. And then when I do this, I'll be able to put on my sway bar link. And there's the sway bar. So again, the letters are just how they specify the different types to go in different cars in this game. Alright, so I'm going to leave this open for now. Aha! I found it. My radiator and their housing fan is probably done too. So let me, because that may be that last part for me, is the radiator. So let me go over here and put all the stuff over here on. Same thing. So I try to get used to this sometimes. Click on suspension. Now let's do mount part. Now lower arm suspension. Done. And now let's go ahead and do the drive axle. And now let's go ahead and do, yeah, I can do the shock absorber and then the sway bar. Or the sway bar link. The sway bar link. This is the sway bar. That's the link. Alright, so now from there, let's go ahead and put in our tie rods. Inner tie rod. Alright. Beautiful. Should I actually make sure that these rubber bushings, examine the bushings? Yeah, they're fine. Alright, so now let's lower this because I'm going to take a look at the radiator right quick. Because I can always put the wheels on here, but I think I saw the radiator. Oh yeah, let's go ahead and examine my radiator. Alright, well, how? So this is my first time doing the radiator. So we're just going to take off the housing. And now we're just going to take off the radiator. And now let's going to see. Yeah, it's the housing and that. Okay, so I'm just going to leave it at that since this is for suspension, but that also shows how you can go and look at anything else in the car. And I'm going to just put the wheels on, get back to mount mode, and there you go. So I thought it followed suspension to a T. I recently just saw a car's front suspension and had a mechanic try to tell me something that, you know, wasn't the case. Not saying that this game is all be all to end all, but I actually have some resources on the resources too, and this kind of this verifies it a little bit as well. So there you go with suspension. So if you're starting out in the game and you get a suspension job and not sure what to do, so hopefully this helps. And thank you.